Chapter 1. Home, Sweat, Home. My family's condo occupies the top 2 floors of one of 4 3-story buildings forming a small complex only a few hundred yards from the beach. There are multi-story condos on either side, as well as a single-level one below our home. All 3 neighboring units are owned by part-timers from out of town, which means for long stretches we've been lucky enough to have the whole building to ourselves. Sadly, those days may be coming to an end, as one of the adjacent units just went on the market. This means we could end up with full-time neighbors with a bevy of barking beagles, or worse, a steady stream of obnoxious vacation renters with no intention of acting neighborly whatsoever. One major problem I have with living surrounded by other residences is that I'm highly, as in extremely, sensitive to noise. I've suffered from this inconvenient malady ever since I can remember. I blame it on my artistic temperament. Innumerable other creative types have dealt with the same issue. Recently, in fact, scientists at Northwestern University found that hypersensitivity to audio stimuli is a sign of creativity, and maybe even genius. Marcel Proust wrote while wearing earplugs in a Parisian bedroom lined with cork. Across the English Channel, Thomas Carlyle soundproofed his writing room with double walls. Franz Kafka and Anton Chekhov were also famously discombobulated by ambient noise. So I guess I'm in pretty good company. When our downstairs neighbors in town blasting NPR all day up through the wafer-thin floor under my workspace, and, in a desperate attempt to maintain my train of thought, I engage in various defensive behaviors, turning on the hall fountain, jamming earplugs in my ears, clamping on headphones without actually playing music for extra soundproofing. I do go through phases when I enjoy working to music, but at the moment, sadly, I'm not in one. For the sonically challenged, the world would be much better indeed if architects and builders cared about noise pollution as much as profit margins. Here on my small island, they would build condos with cellophane if such methods were up to hurricane code. Instead, whoever constructed the stack-a-shack my family and I inhabit used wax paper for the floors and walls. Pacing in his room upstairs, my teenage son, he who refuses to be named, sounds like a spastic elephant stomping. I've often thought, marveling at the deafening reverb of his footfalls through the ceiling, that even if this place could withstand a hurricane, a mild earthquake would flatten it. I bet you could hear a rodent tiptoeing around up there. To make matters worse, noise isn't the only thing that upsets me. Light also can be a major lifestyle disruption. I'm referring specifically to a neighbor's porch light shining through one's curtains when one is attempting to sleep. The master bedroom is stupidly positioned so that an outside bulb left on by a neighbor at night will reflect off the adjacent building and illuminate the entire space like headlights. Despite the absence of full-timers in our building, porch lights spookily get turned on with bizarre regularity, to the point that I save myself the hassle of being blinded awake by wearing a sleep mask. Oh, the price we pay to live at the beach. Speaking of price, the rent ain't cheap. If you can manage to find a decent long-term rental, which I'm given to believe requires divine intervention, price gouging is a way of life in the island rental market. And even with rents through the roof, so to speak, getting your landlord to perform anything but emergency maintenance is like extracting your own wisdom teeth. Though it has its charms, such as a treehouse feel, with lovely views of oaks draped with Spanish moss, by rights our condo ought to be gutted and remodeled from scratch. This was clear when we moved in, telling ourselves we were merely extending a terribly overdue beach vacation a little longer, nearly 4 years ago. The throwback laminate flooring in the kitchen and bathrooms, pocked with dings and weird stains, was an assault on the eyes. The carpet looked original, meaning from circa 1980, ditto for the sticky appliances. The kitchen cabinets were yellow with age. The ceiling plaster was falling down. The walls had so many holes they might have served as dartboards during bouts of heavy drinking. You couldn't even open the cloudy windows, or rather, you could open them, but good luck getting them closed again. That said, The apartment was tantalizingly close to the island's best beaches and bike paths, and there was a sunlit nook at a bay window where I could write and paint. And compared to everything else we'd looked at, it was a pretty good deal. "We'll take it," we told the owner, barely hesitating. Since then, the place's condition, despite our best efforts at upkeep, has only deteriorated. The grout between the kitchen tiles has steadily chipped away. The washer has stopped washing worth a damn. The dryer has started tearing tiny holes in our clothes. The toilets, growing sluggish in their old age, have begun to require multiple flushes to get the job done. Meanwhile, our landlord actually had the audacity to raise our rent. The thought of finding another rental or even purchasing our own condo ever occupies our minds, but amazingly, we've never found a place we like better, as close to the beach, or anywhere near the same price point. So, the search continues. After being model renters for 3 years, we finally managed to convince our landlord to paint some of the walls and patch the most egregious regions of the ceiling. For these jobs, a Gullah gentleman named Beau was hired. Beau is also the handyman called in for emergency repairs. He's ancient, can barely see, missed a number of spots, and splattered paint and plaster all over the floors. To be fair, his efforts did brighten up the place. For a few months anyway, after we cleared up his mess, until new parts of the ceiling started falling down and heavy rains leaked in and stained the dining room wall a dubious brown. I should say dudious, because with 2 bathrooms upstairs, you just never know. We went through a period earlier this year when the commode in the guest bath mysteriously kept overflowing, which on several occasions caused toilet water to rain down through the kitchen light fixtures. And yes, this left suspect brown stains Beau was kind enough to plaster over along with our stovetop. The funny thing is, more often than not, we've enjoyed being here. Putting up with such an array of domestic imperfections has taught us an important lesson. You have to take things with a grain of salt on a small island. Better to simply give whatever's currently breaking down a single-finger salute while sipping a craft cocktail than waste time and energy fretting over it. Strangely, when this kind of devil-may-care attitude is adopted, things have a nearly supernatural way of working themselves out. This truth was brought home not too long ago, on a Saturday night, during the hottest September we'd ever experienced here, when, without warning, our AC abruptly crashed. Our thermostat just died, as in went completely blank. While the AC had given us trouble numerous times before, nothing like this had ever happened. We tried contacting our discount central air guy, the only AC man our cheapo landlord would let near the place, who was usually on call but whose voice message indicated he was out of the country indefinitely. "We're screwed," I told Lee as I hung up the phone. "What would you like to drink?" A cosmopolitan and a half later, the temperature indoors cresting 85 degrees and beads of sweat collecting on our foreheads, I mused from where I sat sticking to the pleather couch. I've concluded that I'm better at being chilly than being hot. "Me too," replied Lee, fanning her beautiful flushed cheeks so vigorously the dark hair of her full eyebrows quivered. "You can always put on clothes, but there are only so many clothes you can take off. Are you coming on to me in this heat? Are you kidding? Not on your life." We drained our martini glasses and reloaded. "The next time I start thinking things are finally flowing smoothly," I said, sitting back down for round 3, "would somebody please slap the shit out of me?" "With pleasure. Speaking of, what exactly is the purpose of shit? Literally or metaphorically?" "Literally." "I don't know. I think it gives the flies something to do." "Maybe. You know, there are so many serious design flaws in nature. Consider all the trees you have to chop down just to wipe your ass." We were pretty drunk, in case you couldn't tell, but at least we no longer cared about the AC. We'd finished drinking, at least temporarily, and were urging our son to stir from the stuffy recesses of his room and join us for a nocturnal cool-off dip in the pool, when my hypersensitive ears heard the rattle of a familiar-sounding vehicle pull up below the dining room window. "That's got to be Ivan!" I exclaimed. cracking open the blinds and peering down, dripping sweat, at the parking lot. Sure enough, our neighbor was climbing out of his rusty, topless Wrangler of the vintage variety. Ivan was a full-timer in one of the other buildings in our complex. We'd gone out drinking a couple times and were on friendly terms. A laid-back Renaissance man, as thin and tan as a stalk of dune grass, Ivan was an excellent amateur chef, competitive kite surfer, and gifted poet, whose poems had been published in several high-profile literary rags. He also owned a small construction outfit, and I recalled in a flash of lucidity had once repaired his unit's HVAC. I could tell he'd been imbibing, and thus was likely to be in a jovial mood, because he wobbled as he stepped up on the curb. I was out the door onto the front porch in a hot minute. "Hi there, Ivan. How are you?" "Can't complain," he drawled with his charming Lowcountry accent as he slicked back his thinning bronze hair. "Your own bad self?" "Dying in this heat wave. Our AC's on the fritz. Feel like trading your expertise for a cocktail?" "What the hell? Be right up." Having determined that the problem was a clogged drain line, as opposed to the AC unit proper, Ivan retrieved a drain gun with a CO2 cartridge from his condo and drunkenly climbed the pull-down ladder up into our attic. 5 minutes later, our AC was back on, blowing deliciously cool air into our sweltering home. "Ivan, you're a saint," I said. "What can I get you to drink?" "Anything, so long as it's not dark. I get mean whenever I drink dark liquor." "How about a G&T?" "Sounds perfect. Very cooling." I made G&Ts for the three of us. We drank them while hanging out listening to tunes from Serge Gainsbourg's rebellious reggae phase. The evening's final twist came after Ivan finished his cocktail and was stumbling back out the door. "The next time your AC goes out, this should help you relax," he said, pulling a small bag of weed out of his pocket and handing it to me. "Ivan, I appreciate everything." "No need to thank me. There's plenty more where this came from, if you get my drift." Left alone again, Lee and I eyeballed each other with mild astonishment. Neither of us had ever so much as suspected we had a dealer for a neighbor. "What are we going to do with this?" I asked, pointing at the bag of green goodness with a pungent bouquet in my palm. "Save it for a shitty day, I guess," said Lee.